Can I remember how to do this? I think I do. All right, 6 and around. Let's see what else I got. And then we pull the tail to make it tight. Nope. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So we write it down. Magic circle, 6 stitch, 12 stitch, and then 2 SC, 1 around. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Do I have any? Wow, okay, can't get that in. Silly. All right. And then we'll go 1, 2, and then 1, and then 1, 2, and then 1, and I'm tucking in the magic tail as I go so that I don't have to tuck it in later. Okay. And then we just go around in a circle each time, adding, so it'll be like 2 and 1, and then 2 for the next round, and then 2 and 1, and then 3 in the next round, and 2 and 1 until I get the circumference of the circle that I want. The way you increase like that means that what you're crocheting will stay flat. is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like a flat disc that's the bottom of my poop. And here is where I get started just being on mute for the video that I actually took, because Mark and everybody was watching TV and I don't want to get copyright notifications, you know, violations for having that on in the background. I finished the pattern up until the circumference of the bottom circle, and then I just went around with some single crochets to create that curved base and start going vertical from that base. So that's what I'm working on right now. And here, I believe, is where I was messing up, and I'm showing you because I didn't cinch that center part enough, and I was running out of yarn, and I was trying to make it work. I was thinking maybe it would be the right shape, but I end up actually taking out about, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these rows and going back and altering the pattern I was writing so that I was decreasing a lot more. So you start with the circle base, you come up with some rounds of just single crochet around in a circle, and then you start getting smaller and smaller. And I needed to get way smaller than I did this first time around, because if you can see in my hands right now, the top is like no smaller than the bottom, and it doesn't look like the poo shaped emoji that I wanted it to. So I am still crocheting here apparently, but I do go ahead and I rip most of this out, just to conserve yarn too and get a better shape, because yeah, it's not working out. And yep, here's the video. So I only have that much yarn left over in this little tiny mini skein, and the shape is no good anyway. So this is me pulling out those rows, and it's discouraging, you know, when you spent time on, you know, on trying to figure it out, and then you end up having to pull it apart. But in the long run, pulling that yarn away and actually doing the shape and getting it done properly and not running out of yarn and having to switch to a different color, it's satisfying, okay? Even though right now I was a little disheartened. You always, you know, you have to make adjustments as you go. So there, I pulled it out, and I'm going to go back in, altering my pattern here. And the complete free pattern is on my website, DanielleLombardo.com, if you want to check that out. I'll also link it down below. And yeah. But it's trial and error, you know? You gotta figure it out as you go. So it took me a day to get back to this project. After you pull all the yarn out and you have to restart at a certain spot, you know, like I was busy with my baby, but also, you know, it's because it's disheartening. It's hard to get back to a project knowing like you're gonna have to redo those rows. But so this time around I cinched in a lot more. I think if we look at the pattern, I go every 2 stitches I was decreasing, and then, and only then, when the cinch was very much smaller, it was about the size of a quarter at this gauge with this hook that I'm using. And then I started expanding for the top the head of the poo emoji. And that's when I started adding stitches back, but not too many, just so that the bottom is way bigger than the top, like a snowman. You don't want the top of the snowman to be bigger than the bottom. It makes no sense, and it also doesn't stand up properly. So, you know, you got to make sure that based on your gauge, and that's really like how tight you're holding your yarn, and what you're comfortable with, you know, because I'm using a regular skein of yarn. I forget what, it's like a worsted weight yarn. I might be wrong about that. It's the regular yarn. It's not like chenille, the fluffy yarn that's like thicker and chunkier. And it's not, it's more like cording yarn. So, you know, depending on what material you want to use for this project, your gauge is going to be different than mine. And you could honestly make it with whatever size hook you want, because if you wanted to go bigger, I would suggest a thicker yarn, but also maybe multiple strains of yarn. That way you get that chunky buildup and you don't see, you know, what you're stuffing inside of it. But yeah, you could use a giant hook and have like a giant, you know, like those giant squishmallows. Those are super cute. But yeah, I'm sure you could use this pattern. That's, again, free on my website, for any size poo emoji that you would like to make. Cool. Now we're in the home stretch, almost done, and I'm going to just put some safety eyes on my little guy. I'm not going to give this one a mouth, even though I think there is a mouth on the actual poo emoji. At least on iPhone there is. But yeah, just small little 2 safety eyes, which are funny that they're called safety eyes when they're not actually safe. I forget the age limit on when you should, you know, when you shouldn't have safety eye toys and stuff around your baby, because if by chance these eyes fall off, they're a choking hazard because they're so small, and it's no good. So if you do have small children, please do not use these and give them the toy. I would suggest crocheting on eyes at that point, using probably like a French knot would do it, or just sewing them on. You know, if you just had yarn and you just went back and forth between 2 rows, you can make eyes pretty easy. This is actually for my 10-year-old nephew, so yeah, he's well aware not to be putting this and these safety eyes in his mouth. I should hope so, at least. He is a kid that likes poo emojis, so that's why it's for him, though. Whatever. And you want to stuff the whatever you're making as you go before it gets too small, before you start really closing it up. That way you can get the right amount of stuffing in each portion, especially if the segments are tighter than this is. And then it's just easier. It's less lumpy. It pretty much stays where you need it to while you're closing it up. That way you could like push it down inside of the toy, and it won't start leaking out the top, or there's not enough in the bottom and there's too much in the top. So that was the end. Just cinched him up and using one of the little blunted yarn needles to just tuck in the tail. I actually go down the side of the crochet person poop emoji, and I was like just cinching a little bit along the way to kind of make it look a little bit more uneven, and then tucked it a little bit tighter down at the bottom, and that's where I put the knot, so that the top and the bottom will stay cinched together. And yeah, and then I'm just tucking in the long ends. And then once you have most of it tucked in with the needle, I just use the back end of the crochet hook to push the rest in. You can obviously cut this tail off. It doesn't need to be as long as I made it, but it was the end of the yarn, so might as well use it as part of the stuffing is what I think, to make use of your yarn and not throw away something that you can make use of for stuffing. And yeah, you just squish it a little bit, make sure it's the right shape. And this is the end result of my little poo emoji. Thank you so much for watching, and check out my website if you want that free pattern. I also have some other free patterns for videos that I've done here. So thanks for watching. Bye.